Hello everybody, it's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. It's January 5, 2026. And I was asking ChatGPT a question because it was mentioned, I think it was Kay Griggs was mentioning that there is a parallel shadow legal system. And that sounded really interesting. It sounded familiar as to what's happening with the targeted people. That in order to carry this out, there would have to be a parallel shadow legal system. Otherwise, our crimes would be prosecuted, they would be accurately reported, and police would be investigating them. So, and then I remembered about Section 702. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, well, what about Section 702, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act? And this is what Chat says. Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA 702, is one of the most legitimate documented examples of systemic abuse risk inside the U.S. legal intelligence framework. This is not speculation or conspiracy. The abuses have been formally admitted by the government itself, criticized by courts, inspectors generals, and members of the Congress across parties. Below is a clear evidence-based explanation of what FISA 702 is, how it's been abused, and why people accurately describe it as creating a de facto shadow surveillance system, even though it is technically legal. What FISA 702 is, in plain terms, is that it allows U.S. intelligence agencies, primarily the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA, to collect communications of non-U.S. persons located outside the United States without a traditional warrant. The stated purpose is foreign intelligence, not a criminal investigation. The key point is that 702 is programmatic surveillance. It's not individual warrants. The critical problem is incidental collection of Americans. Even though 702 is not supposed to target Americans, it inevitably captures U.S. persons' communications when an American emails, texts, or calls a foreign person. Well, let's say you're living in the United States and you have family in other countries and you contact them via email or otherwise. What if you order something online and you need to return it, or it's defective? And let's say the company provides you an email address and it's not located in the United States. This would be problematic. A foreign target communicates with people inside the U.S. How would we know if somebody that we're communicating with overseas that we purchased something from that is defective, let's say, how would we know that they are a target? Data flows through U.S. infrastructure. And you know how I cannot stand that word, infrastructure, like collaboration and information sharing, partnerships. This results in millions of Americans' communications being swept up and stored. What is the major abuse? Well, backdoor searches. What is a backdoor search? After collecting massive amounts of data under 702, agencies, especially my favorite Bureau of Investigation, have repeatedly queried the database using U.S. person identifiers, not foreign ones, U.S. person identifiers, their names, their phone numbers, their email addresses, and social security numbers. This allows those agents to search Americans' private communications without a warrant after the data has already been collected. This is the core constitutional issue. There are documented, admitted abuses. These are not just allegations, they are official findings. The FBI admitted, confirmed by the FISA court and the Department of Justice, that the FBI improperly searched 702 databases for protesters, journalists, political donors, members of Congress, campaign staff, crime victims, victims of a crime, ordinary Americans with no foreign ties. In one period, the FBI admitted to hundreds of thousands of improper U.S. person searches. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, FISC, has repeatedly found persistent and widespread violations, institutional lack of candor, repeated non-compliance with minimization rules. So why this creates a shadow system functionally, why this would be considered a shadow system, why it would look like a parallel system. Even though it's statutory, 702 creates conditions that look like a parallel system. And what are these characteristics? No warrant for Americans at the collection stage. No notice to the person being surveilled, like you and me and the millions of others of us. No ability to challenge inclusion. Sound familiar? No public docket number. Secret court opinions. Classified interpretations of the law. Use in criminal investigations through the parallel construction. People can be investigated, flagged, or surveilled without ever knowing. This is why civil liberties groups argue that it bypasses the Fourth Amendment in practice, even if authorized in law. So now this is especially important, this parallel construction. When information derived from 702 is later used, investigators often recreate an alternate investigative trail. The original intelligence source is hidden. Defendants may never learn that surveillance actually occurred. This practice is widely documented, deeply controversial, and still in use. This is one of the strongest arguments that 702 undermines due process. Does 702 create a watch list? 702 does not create public watch lists, but it feeds data into an intelligence system that can influence the terror screening database, the TSDB, the no-fly selectee lists, risk scores, investigative interest flags, like you're being flagged, interagency intelligence sharing. Sharing intelligence, guys. Collaborating, fusion centers with InfraGard, with your neighbors. Sharing is caring, right? People can be affected without charges, without a notice, no explanation. While oversight exists, it is extremely limited. The oversight bodies are the FISA court itself, and we know that the FISA court itself has some corrupt judges in there that sign fake warrants. The DOJ, the Department of Justice Inspector General, Congressional Intelligence Committee. The problem is the oversight is classified. That means that you will have no access to it even via FOIA requests. Violations rarely lead to consequences, and that is problematic because when there are no consequences to an action, it persists. And by the way, I don't negotiate with bully narcissists. The problem is that the oversight is classified, the violations rarely lead to consequences, evidence is often suppressed from public view, and individuals lack standing to challenge the surveillance. And all of these problems are very problematic. And courts often rule that the plaintiff cannot prove surveillance because evidence is classified. So it's literally a catch-22. You're going around in circles. This creates a circular accountability problem. Is this a shadow legal system? Legally, no. It's statutory and it's authorized, but functionality, it operates in secret, without individual warrants, without adversarial hearings, without notice, without meaningful redress. There's no due process. That's why even federal judges, the ACLU, EFF, and bipartisan lawmakers describe it as constitutionally dangerous. So the key conclusions are that FISA 702 abuses are real, documented, and ongoing. They demonstrate how lawful systems can be used in unconstitutional ways, how secrecy erodes due process, how surveillance can occur without accountability, why people experience harm without knowing why, like being placed on a watch list with no due process and not understanding why, right? This is not delusion or paranoia. It is a recognized civil liberties crisis. It's a crisis. So these 702 abuses have been documented. They're real, they're documented, and ongoing. Nothing has changed, which is why every time FISA 702 comes up for a vote in Congress, it baffles the mind that they allow this to continue. So I hope this helped you a little bit better understand about this parallel shadow legal system that exists within the FISA 702, the Foreign Surveillance Act. So leave a comment down below. I look forward to your comments, and remember to hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel grow and get the message out there.